It's very likely that many of us here have no concept of what a dark hell the Escambia County Jail can be. It's a place where many people have hit the bottom and become, as a result of that, receptive to a new way of life. When I first visited the jail, I was shocked and saddened at the state to which a human being could decline to, but I was delighted to find a light in that darkness through the person of Chaplain Leggett, who's here to speak to us today. I'm totally amazed by the number and the effectiveness of the programs that Chaplain Leggett deploys in the jail. And I'm delighted that we have him here today to tell us about them. Chaplain Leggett was born in Pensacola, raised in Pensacola. He entered the ministry in 1986. He entered prison ministry in 1988 as a volunteer at Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore. He is now the senior chaplain at the Escambia County Main Jail, and he has served there for 18 years, where he began as a volunteer. He is the founding and senior pastor of New Vision Worship Center, which is an organization that reaches out to the families of incarcerated men. He is ordained as a senior chaplain and certified through the state of Florida as a recovery support specialist for in the areas of drugs and alcohol. I'm delighted to present to you today Chaplain Leggett.
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm so humbled to be here, especially with such a group of people that's sitting before me. I'm very honored. Thank you for inviting me. I have 20 minutes to talk about 25 years, so I'm going to do the best I can. I was called in the ministry, as he said, in 1988 in jail ministry. I was senior pastor at that time of a church up in the north end of the county, and I was asked repeatedly by my friends up there to go to Holman Prison to preach. And I said, no, I have no desire to go there. So after about 3 or 4 attempts, I finally surrendered and said, I'll go. I did not want to go, but I told my wife I'll do this so they'll get off my back. So I went and I signed up and I went into Holman Prison. That day they were feeding the inmates, and we fed 500 on the courtyard outside. That afternoon it was my time to preach. It was my day to speak in the chapel. During the time that we were feeding, there was an inmate came through the line and he was cursing every other word. It was football season. He had a little radio plugged to his ear and he was listening. I guess his team was losing. But when he came up, and my job was to put the cookies on his tray. Now you got to remember, I did not really want to be there because I didn't feel the call of God to do this kind of work. And the Lord just said, say to him that he needs to surrender unto me today. And I said, well, Lord, are you sure? Because I'm new at all this. And this was a big man. And I said, I put his cookie on his tray and I took it off. And when I did, he dropped that radio and he stared at me. And I said, the Lord said, you need to get right with him today. He's not going to tarry with you all times. Give him his cookies and he left. That afternoon I walked into chapel. He was sitting on the back row. If you've ever been to Holman Prison, when you walk in the door, you know how it's laid out. He was sitting on the very back. And he looked at me when I walked through the doors. They did their music at the prison. They had their own band. They do great music at Holman, the inmates. And I gave a message. I gave an altar call. And this man ran from the back of that chapel to the altar. And when we prayed with him, after we had finished our prayers, I stood up. And when I stood up, he grabbed me. And that's not a good thing. Not at all. He grabbed me and he picked me up to where my toes were barely touching the ground, and he whispered in my ear. He said, he's called me pastor. He said, you know, I've never had a man tell me what you just told me. He said, but on the outside I was being tough, but on the inside I was dying. And when you said that, something released inside of me. And all I could think about was getting to the chapel today. He said, but I wish you would have waited till after we had our meal. He said, because all I could do was sit outside thinking about getting to this chapel. And he said, my stomach was like in a knot. He said, I couldn't enjoy that hamburger that you fed me. At that moment, God spoke to me. He said, these men can change. I went home that day, and that night I told my wife, I said, honey, I got to go back. She said, no, you said you wasn't going back. I said, I must go back. And I started the journey that I've been on for 25 years. I have seen men and women change. And I have the opportunity to talk to these men and women at Escambia County Jail. And yes, we do have many, many opportunities of ministry. And I thank God for Sean as he came and got involved in all the things that he's doing to help in his church. And many churches that's represented here today, you may be those that are in our system. I have 117 volunteers that come in and minister. Well, I just want to go over a few things that we do because I don't have time to tell you everything. Well, last year there was 16,000 people booked at Escambia County. A lot of those people got released or got bonded out the same day. But we have a population at the main jail of 800 to 900 men, women, and children, or juveniles, I call them children, at the main jail. 900 men is locked up in that facility. We have Protestant services on every Sunday. We have 2 services, one at 2 o'clock, one at 3 o'clock. I can only put 60 men at a time in the chapel, so that's only 120 men per week can attend church service on Sunday. Divide that into 900 and you see there's a great rotation. I need more time and more services, and I pray that we can get those soon. We have Catholic service every Wednesday at 7:45. The Catholic churches, they come in and they minister. We have Friday Islam service, starts from 12, goes to 1 o'clock. We have Jewish services set up for those that need that as a needed base. And Eric Tokinger is one of the men that helps us in that area. The juveniles that we have, they come into the jail and they are not the little boys you see in Sunday school. And about 4 years ago, they were very destructive and tearing things up. And the commander came to me and said, Chaplain, what can we do? I said, I don't know, let me think about it. So I began to think, and with God's guidance, he said, you need to start a mentor program, not to preach. Can you imagine God said, don't preach? He was telling me, don't preach these men first. Start a mentor program. Learn who they are. Let them know who you are, and then you can share what they need. I have 5 churches on roll that signed up to come in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of every week. They go into the juveniles and they sit down and they mentor these young men. And it's changed the entire environment of the juvenile pod. They're not the same as they used to be. They have hope. And you know, once a man gets hope, he can change his life. I read an article years ago, I don't remember the title of the article, but it said a man can live about 40 days without food, about 7 days without water, but only a few minutes without hope. And when we go into these dark areas, and we give these men hope, then they have something to hold on to. And it changes not only the jail itself, but our city and our counties. Because these men are getting out. They're coming home and they're going to be next to you. They're going to be down the street. And I want to send them out with that hope inside of them that they know they can change. And I know that they can, because I've seen it many, many, many times. So the mentor program, if you're interested in that, please let me know. We have from 15 to 18. We've had them as young as 11 years old in jail for capital murder. But right now it's about 15 to 18 years old in our juveniles. Every Wednesday we have a church that goes into the lockdown area of the jail. These men have no time outside of their cell except to go outside once a week and then they're locked down again. So I told the commander, I said, we need to minister to these men. They can't leave their cell. So they allowed us to start a program where we can actually go into the lockdown pods with the help of all the volunteers. I want you to know, I could not do what I'm doing without volunteers. And I thank God for every man and every woman that signs up and says, I want to come in and help. So they'll go in and they'll sit down with these men, locked in the cell with them for an hour and a half every Wednesday, and just minister to these guys. And we've seen some great results and some great things happening in the lockdown areas. We also have a book cart. The book cart goes around. We deliver books to all the inmates. And those books come from different areas and different people's donating. And also the county gives us an allotment that we can go spend $2,000 a year to buy books to put into the hands of the inmates to keep them occupied throughout the days. We have a Bible cart that goes throughout the jail, supplying all the materials they need for their faith, whichever faith it is. We supply that material and we'll give that to them. There again, volunteers are coming in to do this job. When I got in there, I began to see that there's so many of the inmates coming back to jail, repeating. They get out, stay out for a few days, come back, some a month, come back. And I began to say, we got to do something about it. I see dads come to jail. I see sons follow them to jail. I see mothers in jail. I see daughters follow them to jail. I said, we've got to stop that. What can we do? And we began to think about it, and talking to some of my volunteers and pastors, we said one of the things that makes a strong community is strong families. And when you have strong families, you have a strong community. So let's put together a program called Fathers to Fathers, that we can take these inmates and teach them how to be a father. Because you got to understand, most of the inmates that are in jail is because they didn't have a father at home, so they don't even know how to be a father. So I've got good men, good fathers in our community that say, hey, I want to do that. I want to sit down with a man and tell him how to raise his children. I said, hallelujah, that's what I want. And we put this program together, and we meet every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. And these men come in, these fathers sit there. One of the things I tell them, and I think you'll understand this. I said, every man in front of me right here is good. Talking to the inmates. And at first they would be, I said, you're good. There's good stuff in you. And we're going to get it out of you. And we're going to show you that you can be good. And now when they come into our setting, you know what they say? They shout this every time they walk through the door. He got up, and so did I. He got up, and so did I. They're starting to get up out of their mess that they're in. So what do? We supply letters. We supply the material for letters and cards and envelopes and stamps, so these fathers can connect to their children again. And they're sending out letters, and we're paying for it. And I say, I don't care how many you want to send out. You write a letter, we'll put a stamp on it, and we'll get it out of this jail, and we're going to reconnect you to your children. And all of a sudden, at first it wasn't too exciting because they'd send them out over and over and over with no reply. And then finally, one day, one of the inmates came in. He had a letter in his hand, tears running down his face. He said, I just got a letter this week from my 11-year-old son. Let me tell you, it's beginning to change their lives, and they're starting to look at responsibilities. And if they grab this responsibility, and somebody talking about responsibility, somebody better have a good time, please, so you can tell me when I need to stop. So that is one of the things we're doing, and I'm telling you, this Fathers to Fathers, I would challenge you, if you would just like to come visit one Wednesday, just pop in my office and say, hey, I want to go upstairs with you today. I'd like to see that Father's class. I want to see what's going on. I want to see how this works. Just to come see what God is doing, what the community is doing, the business people are doing to make these things happen. And I really would like to see you do that. So now we're getting the fathers and the children back together. Okay, we're connecting them. We're making a tight unit again and trying to bring this family back together. So I said, okay, now we got to stop the children somehow. Because the children are coming in. I got, like I said, juveniles 15 years old in jail, as young as 11 years old. So we started another program called Break the Cycle of Jail Addiction. And yeah, it is an addiction because before they changed the way we visit, now it's video visitation. They'd sign up at the jail. The fathers and mothers and children, they'd all come to jail. And they'd sit in the lobby and I'd hear their conversations, and it was so sad in my heart because they'd be like this, "Hey man, what's going on? I'm just down here to see my son. Yeah, my cousin's up here." And there was no remorse, no sadness. It was just a family reunion. I said, how can we stop this? They got to see this is not a good thing. I had the privilege to have lunch with Judge Frank Bell many, many years ago. We were sitting down having lunch. We were talking about the thing that we're talking about now, children. And I said, you know, we got to reach them when they're in elementary school. And he looked at me over his plate and he said, "No, Chaplain, you got to reach them when they're 6 months old. You got to start early." So then I began to think. I said, okay, so I'm going to go out and reach these children. So what we've done is break the cycle of jail addiction. We're going in our community and mentoring these children that's outside the system before they ever get into the system. And you say, well, how can you do that? Well, we take them to the park. Some of them's never been to a park and have a good day eating hamburgers and having fun at a park. You know, I got a club in Alabama that flies radio-controlled airplanes. I don't know anything about those airplanes. But they heard about it and they said, "Hey, we want to be a part of your program." I said, "Well, how can you be a part of this?" So we want to take a group of these children to the airfield. We're going to set up our planes and our monitors and let them fly a plane on a monitor, learn how to do it on a monitor, and then we're going to let them fly an actual plane. I said, "Well, that is crazy." That's what I like to see. These young boys may grow up one day to fly one of these jets that's flying out of the Pensacola airport. Only because they went to a strip and they seen there's something different than crack cocaine. See, here's their lifestyle. They grow up, mom and daddy's fighting all night long. Mom and daddy wakes up the next morning, they're doing their crack, smoking their dope, kicking their kids around. That's the life they live. You know, it's a hard thing to talk about because most people say, "I don't want to discuss that." That's the way these young boys grow up. So we're going to change with people just like you. The community's helping. We're going to reach these young boys and girls and we're going to give them a new way of thinking. And it's only because of people with a passion for the children. So I want to share this with you. Every year, my time's still good? I'm good. Because you know how we, ministers, you know, we like to hang, I've got me an audience right now, you know what I'm saying? Hey, I could, he told me though, he said, "No, you're not allowed to preach." I said, "All right." He already told me that I couldn't do that. Okay, I'm going to finish with this right here. Every year for the inmates, we do a Christmas party. And what we do, we give a pair of socks, three cookies, 2 pieces of candy to the inmates. That's all they get. But what a change it makes. What a change it makes in their lives. They line up, you know, they come and these churches come in. Now, it's going to be on the 19th this year at the jail. You're welcome to come. If you'd like to just walk with me, I'll escort you up and show you around. But we'll have about 60 men and women come into the jail with cookies and socks and candy. We go up on the floors, every cell at the same time, and we'll do Christmas carols, and we'll tell the Christmas story, and we'll give out the cookies. And we always have such a great response out of the men afterwards. And the officers that even tell us, you know, after you guys leave the floor, this whole jail is quiet for that night. Because we brought that single word back into their lives, the word of hope. So that'll be on the 19th, and we're asking for, help in those areas. If you want to help, you can. We'd love to have your support in those areas. Okay, so what I'm going to do, that's just a little snippet. I just tried to tell you a little bit about what's going on, but if you got some questions, I'm good to answer them. Okay. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Obviously, you're just looking for men, correct?
Well, we use men and ladies. We can use both. But at the jail where I am serving, now we have two jails, two facilities. Central Booking and Detention Center. There's about 200 ladies over there in that jail. But at the main jail where I'm at, it's mostly men.
And are y'all receptive to programs like junior achievement or any kind of teaching programs to come in there?
Yes.
And help them with like workplace readiness or?
Yes. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Finance?
Yes, ma'am. That's good.
For gifts to the inmates, how many inmates are there? Or do you go to both facilities, the women's and the men's?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of that?
How many inmates are there?
Okay, at the main jail right now, we have about 830 men right now that's in the main jail. And then at Central Booking, I can guess somewhere around 700. Around 700 men and women over there. The average stay is, if they have sentenced to county time, is what's called 11 months, 15 days. That's the average stay. But I have seen them there as long as 7 years. Yeah, 7 years.
What's your perspective on the effectiveness of the Scared Straight program? You talk a lot about nurturing and a lot of that. How about the other stuff? Bringing the continuing skill traffic.
And you really do. We had, okay, he asked what was my perspective on the Scared Straight program where they bring young boys and girls in and scare them straight. They brought in a group a couple months ago, and there was a young girl came out of the jail before it was time to come out. They had to escort her out, and she was just crying and could not just contain herself. She was really that scared when she saw the jails and the inmates and all that. So I believe those work. And yeah, I'm supportive of those because they do quite a few of them throughout the years at the county jail. Yeah. Anything that could keep them out of jail and straighten them up, I'm for. I hate to see young children go to jail. Anyone else?
What percentage of inmates are there for drug and alcohol related?
Around 80%.
Is there any rehabilitation that can be done versus jail?
What we do, she want to know the percentage of the men and women that's in jail that's related to alcohol and drugs. It's about 80%. And we have a drug program called the Most Excellent Way Drug and Alcohol Program at the jail. It's a faith-based. Also AA is in there. So they're in there every week as well. So we do have programs for them. Pathway, oh yeah, Pathways. It's a great organization. Connie Bookman is over there. She's doing a great job. Yeah.
Job training, vocational training, so there's something we can do when you get
No,
out.
sir, there's not. And I wish we had that at the county level. What they always tell me, we don't have them long enough to teach them those, and they wait till they go to state. But if you have a man 11 months and 15 days, I think you've got time to teach him something.
We do have job workforce training at the prison road camp, and the county has just taken over the jail, and it's our belief to put those kind of workforce programs into the main jail.
Well, good. That is awesome. Okay. Okay.
We got a gift for you here.
Thank you so much for that inspiring message. Again, remind remind all of us of what we all have to be thankful for, not only in our own lives, but thankful for people like Chaplain Leggett that are out there doing God's work, literally. All right, so